Wave to get past Flareon's defensive flame. I can't get a grip on this thing to save my life.
This program was made possible by contributions to your Hayden_IRL station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello friends, it sure has been a while. My extended absence has totally not been because of starting a new job, but instead because I had a realization. After years of discussing Pokemon tournaments, why don't I just host my own? So I did exactly that. The nature of my channel is to introduce and explain the card game to those who aren't professionals, so it only made sense to make those newbies my competitors. I invited 8 Pokemon content creators from across the web who don't play the Pokemon card game to battle it out for a charitable cause. What is the cause? I am glad you asked. Say hello to Tiny Changes. Tiny Changes is a Scotland-based charity started after the 2018 passing of singer and songwriter Scott Hutchison. Scott had died by suicide, and those who were close to him created Tiny Changes to honor his memory, and provide more resources to youth living in Scotland to ensure they could live their full potential as adults. Not only have they led many operations themselves, but are constantly investing in youth-led mental health projects thanks to the donations they receive. Speaking of donations, I'll have the link to donate down below, and I'll be doing a giveaway on Twitter. Watch to the end of this video to learn more. We know what we're fighting for, let's get the motion graphics going and meet who we'll be fighting. First up and first seed is Darkle in his Raging Bolt deck. He scored a 3 on Pokemon TCG knowledge, but his knowledge of other card games being a 5 out of 5 is what shot him right to the top. Next up is Yonderilile, or Lainey Lee, and Espartha, who come in a close second seed. I've not seen Espartha EX in action before now, so I'm excited to see what she's got. The third seed is Squiddy. Squiddy will be bringing in Lugia, who I am just as shocked is still a competitively viable pick as you are. I mean, this thing got top 10 at Worlds. Only time will tell if Squiddy will ride to the same success. The final player on the roster who's ever even touched the card game up to this point is Heyo Jojo, who is fighting against the meta, bringing his Tinkaton EX deck. Coming in at 5th seed is the self-care gamer herself, Liv. She might not have any prior knowledge of card games, but she sure knows how to build a draw engine with her Pidgeot and Charizard deck. 6th seed is Hyperoid and her Charizard deck. You may wonder how she's at 6th seed with higher stats than number 5, and I don't know either. But I do know that with the introduction of the Duskull line, this is sure to be an interesting deck to watch. 7th in line is Chris, who didn't send me a deck list prior to the event, and I'm starting to believe that he didn't have one either. This casual confidence can be a strength, however, and he will utilize it along with his Lugia deck every way he can. Last but certainly not least, in terms of spirit I mean, their stats were the least technically, is Conifer. Conifer will be running the tried and true Charizard deck, and they'll be running it straight into their first opponent in round 1. Me and my co-commentator F-Lam, or Austin,
and I decided to make a tier list of every Pokemon that could stop the September 11 terrorist attacks.
Make our way to the booth and watch as round 1 between Darkle and Conifer begins. Conifer's Charizard deck is based on coming back from behind, while Raging Bolt isn't, which helps explain why Darkle has so much on the field so fast. Conifer is very thoughtful in their movements though, which helped him hold his own. This is also a good time to say, as an almost film minor, I am a huge fan of visual storytelling, and you won't see better show don't tell than observing the way that these players move their mouse while playing. I feel like I could hear exactly what they were thinking. What we were thinking as this match went on was that Conifer was as good as gone.
I just think that Darkle here has way too much momentum in their favor. I really don't see a way that they lose this unless they just can't get another Raging Bolt on the field somehow, or something else that could deal enough damage to knock out a 2-prizer Charizard.
Especially as he loses his Pidgeot EX to bring him down to a 1-6 prize card difference. Just in the deck's nature though, Charizard comes out towards the end to make a comeback. And as we accidentally foreshadowed earlier, Darkle was unable to set up another Raging Bolt with the power to fight against this onslaught. This let Conifer recover from a 1-6 deficit for a spectacular Game 1 upset. We were all in awe of this kickoff to our event, even Conifer when we brought them in for the post-game interview.
I'm just gonna say, chat, watch me win with Charizard. I am ready to play, and, show people how this deck is made to be won with.
For sure.
Let's go. We love to hear it. Next is the Self-Care Gamer versus JoJo. And I need to apologize to Self-Care Gamer again, as I spent the entire start of this game thinking that she was the one playing Espartha, and didn't realize until Charizard was already out on the field. I'm thinking someone else is doing the Espartha deck. I know that that's obvious to everyone else now, but I need to make that announcement.
I was going to say, I think you're mistaken as to who has the Espartha.
Yeah, Self-Care Gamer is a through and through Charizard. I'm going to say that about 10 minutes into this match. On the other side was JoJo's Tinkaton EX deck, which plans to win by getting as many cards in hand to strengthen Tinkaton's big hammer attack. And JoJo was on track too, but despite getting up to 10 cards in his hand, none were the rare candy he needed to get that Tinkaton EX out. And this was contrasted by Liv, who is throwing rare candies out like they were going out of style. That isn't to say that JoJo never got a rare candy, but it was only after all 3 of his Tinkaton EXs were lost to Iono. This was kind of the nail in the coffin, and with one final shrug, JoJo's game was lost. Despite the commanding win, Self-Care Gamer only had wonderful things to say about JoJo and his deck, which I guess makes sense given the care is in her name.
I loved all the Dunsparce, they're adorable. I will say I started playing this yesterday, and I don't remember the last time I played Go Fish, so I don't play card games.
Well,
but it's a lot
you
of
wouldn't
fun.
be able to tell.
Say I honestly couldn't tell. You were kind of playing your game, and it was great. You played a Charizard deck, and you played it the way you should have.
There's a lot of really helpful YouTube tutorials on how to play different decks. So there are the resources.
Yep.
There you go. And that's one of the best parts about this tournament is not just, of course, we're here to raise money for charity, but also show off this game and show that people who don't play this game can. And I think this was a great example of that, Liv.
Thank you. And try our best.
Moving on, we get to finally see the real Espartha deck, as Jan Relisle takes the field against Chris's Lugia deck. In addition to having the most fans in chat, Chris also had the most emotes, and easily quadrupled our emote percentage before the first cards were finished being played. Unlike the Charizard decks we've seen so far, Lugia intends to set up ASAP with its Archeops and Special Energy to swing at full force. For Chris, this setting up also meant the addition of the Ace Spec Hero's Cape, which turned his Lugia V-Star into a 380 HP raid boss. And this is really a shame for Jan Relisle too, as she suffered the same fate as JoJo, being unable to actually play her ace Pokemon. We in the commentary booth also found this disappointing, as we had been hyping Espartha up the whole game.
I suppose the best part of this deck, though, is like once they get the Espathra rolling, everything with the damage is not going to be able to output any more damage anyways, so...
That is true.
So, I mean, you might as well just do a little bit, because that little bit is going to matter in the long term.
Jan Relisle gets some damage on the board, but it isn't enough for the wall of legendary diving Pokemon, and she succumbs to her own unfortunate draws. Bringing Chris in for his interview was kind of a trip, so I'll just let you hear the process in full. I actually don't have the means to put your camera on here, so...
Oh, okay. All right.
This works out perfect.
Good first game, Chris. You had a very strong start with the Lugias. You were throwing energy out there left and right, my friend. I was a little concerned for you that if that Espathra. We're curious. Do you know what the gimmick of the Espathra deck is?
I have no idea what I was playing against. I wasn't even really looking at like the other cards. I was just hitting the emote button pretty much the whole time.
You were just hitting that bonk button. You were just full steam ahead. So the point of the Espathra deck is that was very very scary for you in that situation was. The idea is they want to put a bunch of damage on your Pokemon without knocking them out, and then if they can get that Espathra out, none of your Pokemon that have damage are allowed to attack. So once they got that set up, that would have been amazing. But man, they just, for whatever reason, could not get that Espathra EX out there. So I think you also got very lucky, but you also played very well.
I didn't know I was in danger. Now I'm gonna be scared. I was like, I was like chilling and feeling good, and I was in danger the whole time.
Oh, you kind of were.
But danger, can't get stressed.
But keep yourself confident. You played it very well, regardless. You played how a Lugia deck should play for the most part. So you did an excellent job.
Yeah, I read about it, and it said put Lugia in, and I said okay, and that's what I did.
That's enough for me.
How high?
You know, I have a few strategies going today. Number one, I learned how to play the game yesterday. That was step one. Number
That is a
two,
good strat. It's a fantastic strat.
Number two, I'm wearing a really tight hat to squeeze the brain juices down and out and into the body. And number three is I drank a whole gallon of muscle milk before this, and now I'm shaking.
What is must? Oh, yeah. Okay. So you've drugged yourself and you're using performance enhancing equipment. Understood.
Yeah, it's all for the kids. You know, it's all for the youth.
For the kids. That's all we care about.
Yeah. If you didn't know, chat, you can donate to that link thing, and not only is it good for the mental health of the youth, but it's also based in Scotland.
It's so true. He's spitting.
They're spitting. Well, thank you, Chris. Do you have anything else to say to chat before you go?
My tummy kind of hurts.
With that behind us, we move on to the final round 1 match. Squiddy's Lugia and Okidogi deck versus Hyperoid with her Charizard. This is also when Austin had to run to the restroom, which in retrospect is one of the worst timed Ps ever, as he almost missed history. Hyperoid sets up with all 3 of her main basic Pokemon against Squiddy's Lugia. While Hyperoid has numbers here, Lugia is a tough early target with its 220 HP. They both play out their first turns in a fairly uneventful manner, but as Hyperoid's second turn begins, things ramp up fast. She gets out Charizard and Dusclops, puts on the Defiance Band, and deals 290 damage to Lugia, enough to secure a turn 2 victory for Hyperoid. For the uninitiated, let me explain the math on that. Dusclops has the ability Cursed Blast, which KOs Dusclops to deal 50 damage to an enemy Pokemon. This gives Squiddy a prize card, which adds 30 damage to Charizard's Burning Darkness, which, along with the 30 damage from Defiance Band, results in 240 damage for that one attack. 240 damage plus the 50 from Dusclops' ability equals a win for Hyperoid. We had to bring in the speedrunner herself when she shared the same excitement that we had for this match.
You guys, I got to show off Dusclops too.
Yeah,
That's all I wanted to see.
And me too.
Wild. Dude, that was a good. That makes.
It was maybe the best hand I could have started with.
Well,
Wow.
I'm
Now
so
I
excited.
want. You're inspiring me to put that in this deck if I get any.
You
of
should.
That.
You should play it.
yeah.
Dusclops
already
happens to
dealing.
be my favorite Pokemon, and it's also very good in Charizard decks
it
right
just
now.
won the game for you.
Yeah,
And it's your favorite guy.
it's so cool. I feel like it. I think I'm gonna ride this high for a little bit.
Oh yeah. Hopefully they'll write it back to the commentary desk after your
Yeah.
round 2 match. Moving on to round 2, we get to see even more Charizard, now in the form of a Charizard Ditto between Self-Care Gamer and Conifer. Both players have a slow start, which I cannot stress enough is the norm for this deck. Things turn around though when Conifer is able to get both their Pidgeot EX and their Charizard EX in the same turn. He bosses orders Liv's Radiant Charizard to the front and knocks it out. This leaves Liv in a tough spot, as she only has her weaker Pokemon left on the field. She does finally get her Charizard out, and takes a risk by using the de-evolution TM to de-evolve Conifer's Charizard. This doesn't pay off though, as he has another one in hand, which is used to effectively sweep the rest of the game and send Conifer back to our commentary booth.
Congratulations.
The next match is between Chris and Hyperoid, 2 players who had very impressive showings up to this point. Just as you'd expect, this match begins with a Duskull, a Lugia, and a whole lot of emotes. Unfortunately, Hyperoid isn't able to secure another turn 2 win, as she isn't able to get her Charmanders out fast enough. Chris, however, is able to get his cape on, and before we know it, he's got Lugia V-Star, 2 Archeops, and the firepower to defeat Dusclops before we can even see its Cursed Blast. Chris continues to further this lead when we get caught on a bit of a tangent. Chris is using his bald energy to destroy his opponent. Alright, I'll take your word for it.
Oh, alright, sure.
Bald is beautiful, that's what I've always said.
Bald is beautiful. Bald is beautiful.
Shout out to all our bald fans in the chat.
Any one's in chat if you're bald.
In all this hoopla, we almost missed Hyperoid losing her Charmeleon and her only Defiance Band. This doesn't stop Hyperoid's fighting spirit though, and she manages to get her Charizard and even take out one of Chris's Lugias. This opened the door for one of Chris's other big hitters though, Ursaluna EX. Ursaluna EX is kind of like Radiant Charizard, as it does massive damage for less and less energy as your opponent takes more prize cards. Energy isn't a concern for Chris though, so we only have to focus on the massive damage that he uses to KO Hyperoid's Charizard. Hyperoid responds by quick searching for boss's orders, which gives her the setup to stop another Lugia V-Star in its tracks. She plays the card and brings out Lumineon. This allows for the V-Star setup and for Chris to boss out Hyperoid's Lumineon for the game. Before we can follow Chris into his next match, I have some technical difficulties and stream comes the Austin show for a little bit. No, not that one. I return just in time for our semifinals match between Conifer and Chris. Chris has beat a Charizard deck before, and we eagerly waited to see if he could do it again. He takes a different approach this time, starting with Snorlax, whose stalling tactics lead us to go off on a bit of a tangent about the Pokemon movies. It's an emotional support, Manaphy.
Exactly. You know what? Sometimes you do need that emotional support, man. If you just like May and the little capsule pod thing where you're just like hugging her, and hanging out, and, while Ash goes and saves the world. I saw a TikTok of that. Like, apparently, that's like that was in 2006. Isn't it crazy? That's like 8 years. 8 years ago.
Disheartening.
Yeah, 8 years ago. Not to make everybody in the chat feel old, the Manaphy movie was 8 years ago.
I guess this kind of slow play is why the Snorlax decks were getting so much hate on Twitter. Conifer's Charizard beats the Snorlax and frees the game, or at least puts it under new management. I say this because now we get to see Cinccino. Cinccino has Special Roll, which does 70 damage for each special energy it has on it, which if you've been keeping up, special energies are plentiful in Chris's deck. Conifer gets out Moltres and TM Evolve for two, count 'em, two Pidgeot EXs. They can't easily enjoy it though, as Cinccino whips out a 240 damage special roll to beat Moltres, and a 380 damage special roll in the next turn to defeat a full health Charizard EX. Things are looking really scary for Conifer. Seeing that Chris only has 5 cards in his deck though, does make it feel as though Conifer has a chance. We in the commentary booth, with the clarity that comes along with not competing, were actually able to see this line to victory for Conifer.
I think what you do here is you boss fish, knock the fish out. You take the whack on your Radiant or your Big Zard, because I mean that's like the best thing, that's the next best thing, but then you've guaranteed yourself a win here.
He didn't though, and this match ended in a loss to Chris. Before I move on, I do want to point out something that we talked about in our post-game interview. Misplays happen. I don't want me pointing out that we saw something that Conifer didn't to come off as an insult to him as a player, because we all understand that these things happen. Heck, even LeBron misses threes. If this tournament or this video has inspired you to play the card game, I can't stress enough just how much these misplays don't spell the end of the world. They are all opportunities to learn. Conifer understood this philosophy as well, and brought that spirit into his loser's final match, which took place against Hey Yo Jojo. Jojo absolutely ripped apart the loser's bracket for the opportunity to make it back to Grands, and poses a serious threat in this match. Jojo starts a lot stronger this game, with the whole Tinkaton line in his hand from the start. That being said, starting his Dunsparce draw engine requires him to leave Tinkatuff alone on the field. This leaves it as prime prey for a swift Blustery Wind KO and another swift loss for Jojo. Despite Jojo's losses on stream, he came into the booth to share with us some wise words that I think all players could stand to hear.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think your stream is cursed, Hayden. I don't know how.
Yeah, we'll look into that
one. But I just hope that this doesn't discourage people from like playing stuff that's not in the meta.
Yeah.
I definitely was talking with a few people, obviously like friends who play the TCG quite frequently. Frosted Caribou being one of them. You know, one of like the main TCG commentators, going the worlds and everything. And her like main motto is just like, play what you love, play what you want, and just have fun with it. And I hope that people can see from like the losers bracket that I was having a blast. Like, we were all having so much fun in the Discord going through. It's just it's a shame that people couldn't see the mechanic work out on this stream. But I hope that they give the deck list a try, and I hope that we're still having fun, and that Chris and Conifor battle it out to see who's best.
Also, prior to Grand Finals beginning, JoJo went on to donate an insane $120 to the fundraiser. I love this guy so much. He was our Pokemon artist representation for this event, so be sure to follow his art on Twitter, along with following all of the lovely creators who helped make this event happen. Now, after 3.5 hours of competition, we have our Grand Finals match between Conifer and Chris. If Conifer loses, he's out, but Chris still has to lose 2 games to be eliminated. Let's see if he rides this confidence to the winner's circle. Conifer comes out the gate with only 1 Charmander, making him have to burn an Ultra Ball just to not end up like JoJo in the last game. This works out for him too, as he's able to get the first hit of the Grand Finals match, and the second. Conifer is swinging as hard as possible before Chris can get out his V-Star Lugia, and even takes the first prize card of the game. Chris finally gets his ace on the field and scrambles to put some energies on it, but it's all in vain as Conifer bosses it to the front for another quick KO. Chris's back is against the wall, and he throws out Bidoof. This was more than likely so that Conifer could only take 1 prize card, which would have been a great plan if Conifer didn't have another boss's orders to take out Lumineon and reset the bracket in a 6-0 prize card match. Chris gets off to a much stronger start in Game 2, with his Behemoth Lugia getting set up across a measly little Manaphy. Without its Archeops though, Lugia can't use its attack, which buys time for Conifer to get a Charizard EX and the first hit of the game for 180 damage. Archeops comes out and the 2 active giants swing, with neither getting a KO, which is kind of ridiculous considering Charizard has dealt 360 damage to Lugia. Even with more damage on the board though, Conifer has few options for once Charizard is KO'd, which is exactly what happens next turn. With things looking bleak, Conifer gets out Pidgeot and replenishes their bench with a buddy-buddy Poffin. Now at least if their hard hitters get knocked out, he's got fodder to think of something else. Pidgeot swings to take out Lugia, and Conifer gets a Charizard EX as their prize card. Now all they need is a rare candy, and they can effectively seal this game. Chris sees this and swings for 200 at Pidgeot, 80 damage short of a KO. Conifer quick searches for rare candy, and things begin to amp up fast. He evolves into Charizard, and learning from past mistakes, bosses up the fish for his next 2 prize cards. Just as lucky as the Charizard EX pull, they get another boss's orders here. I'll save you the suspense and just say it's used to boss up Lugia V and give Conifer the final 2 prize cards of the entire event. If you're wondering if they won $300 here, the answer is no way. Who do you think I am? The $300 of this tournament was the $300+ that we raised for the Tiny Changes charity. Speaking of donations, I'll be hosting a completely no donation required giveaway. If you like the cards I used to represent our wonderful players, I'll be giving them away to someone who replies to the tweet in the info card and description below. Once again, you are not required to donate as to not break gambling laws, but you're totally encouraged to do so regardless, because who doesn't love to show their support and watch the funny number go up? Thank you all again for watching. I had so much fun with this tournament that at the time of editing, I'm starting to plan another big event. Until that idea manifests, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's free, so you'll always get your money's worth.